Good morning, Birendra. Thank you so much for joining us on this HFS videocast. How are you doing today?
Awesome, Melissa. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm excited to jump into this interesting conversation around rewiring CX that we've been having that's been evolving over the last few months and years. So would you start, please, with giving us a bit of an introduction to yourself?
So my name is Birendra Sen. I run the BPO business of Tech Mahindra. We call it Tech Mahindra BPS. We are 60,000 people spread across the globe, right from the West Coast to Christchurch in New Zealand, and serving over 200 customers in improving their CX journeys. So quite excited to be speaking to you, Melissa, and sharing thoughts on what we see in the industry, as well as where our focus area is.
Awesome. That sounds great. So we've been having this conversation with you guys, with a lot of your clients, a lot of other enterprise customers and buyers. And it seems as though there's a shift underway where folks are really looking to start to reimagine and really rewire the way that they approach their customer experience. So I'd love to hear from you on what you're seeing and if you can share what your vision of what that looks like.
I think we look at experiences from many different perspectives, Melissa. We call it human-centered experiences. And that covers, end users or customers or employees, partners, whether it is physical or digital experiences, we look at all those perspectives. And I think, one of our key thrust areas has been to help customers right from building a CX strategy to design of services, building and deploying the services using technology as well as people. And then subsequently continuously measure, analyze, and continuously improve these experiences, right? And what's really interesting for me is that CX for us is really tangible and measurable, and that keeps us honest, whether it is gaining promoters, improving engagement, reducing customer effort, revenue generation, getting more customers on board and getting more out of customers, as well as improving time to market for our new products and services. We are helping our customers achieve these outcomes in a very, very cost-effective manner. And I think that's what our end-to-end ecosystem around CX delivers. I think a large part of that is also proven transformation levers that we leverage to help our customers transform and digitize end-to-end customer journeys and value chains. And across these perspectives, we can help customers in all stages, right from strategy and execution, right? So I think if I was to summarize, I think in today's world, what's also very important is having a toolkit for rapid adoption of tech. And that's what we bring on the table. We believe that tech can solve pretty much every problem. We just need to find the right combination of tech and amazing people to execute with speed and quality. And that's what we bring on the table, from targeted bots to simplify a process using analytics, AI, ML to drive personalization, recommendations, to conversational bots and setting up new CX technology. If you're not setting one from scratch, even transforming your existing one, we do it all. And so I think we're very well placed in terms of our vision of CX, in terms of bringing this end-to-end ecosystem using our own IP, acquired entities, and a set of strategic partners to solve customer problems in the CX domain, Melissa.
Awesome. Thanks for that insight. I'm very interested to understand how this has changed over the last couple of years in an increasingly virtual world that we're living in. And you mentioned the toolkit and how important some of those AI and analytics tools are. How does that fit into this in terms of, are we really going sort of digital first, if you will? Is that the vision that you see? And how is the whole remote and hybrid world impacting that?
I think the last 2 years have been the best education that all of us could have got in the industry. I think if you look, I mean, to your question of whether digital first is the new way of CX, I think so. If you look at the brands that are winning hearts and minds of customers today, they are digital natives. And the reason for them, the way I look at it is quite simple. They have visibility of customer journeys from a data standpoint. Using insights, they can drive improvements rapidly in those user journeys, and they can do that at very low cost. So digital native brands are adapting at a speed that is really amazing to see, and so I'm not surprised that they're winning. On the flip side, you compare that to someone who has a traditional stack, and you want to change a process, consider the cost of IT changes in the underlying systems, managing change in people and processes in bespoke unconnected channels, and then not knowing the real-time impacts of whatever changes you've brought in, right? But all is not over and lost. I think service providers like us and partners like us can help even the traditional firms get digital in a very agile way, because we've been there, done that with multiple customers, and we can accelerate the process using the toolkits that I previously mentioned.
Great. And I want to touch on another piece that you alluded to, which is, not just having the right tools, but having the right people. And it seems as though there's a real awakening around employee experience and knowing that there has to be an increased investment and attention to the way that employees engage with their employer and how they're able to empower customer experience. So how do you see that EX playing in this new virtual world, and how is Tech Mahindra approaching that with its employees?
I think, firstly, as I touched upon it earlier, our thinking is around experience is much more holistic, and we look at it from many different dimensions. And so EX is no different from CX. The same principles apply. We have to look at the brand. And for a strong brand, we have to continuously evolve our culture as well. One of the things I'm telling my team is that by taking a particular decision, would people queue up to join us? Melissa, you'll be surprised the kind of thinking and culture change that bringing about, because then whether we look at journeys from pre-hiring to hiring to onboarding to the first 90 days to the first anniversary to career progression, every touch point, we're taking decisions every day on things that impact, either improve or impact in a negative way the experience of our employees, and it makes us much more sensitive to the ways of working in the virtual world as well. And each of these journeys, what we're doing is implementing a real-time measurement process in terms of collecting feedback, so that we can continuously improve each of these journeys. I think specifically in the virtual world, there are two aspects to it, right? One, it's not as simple as just implementing the office environment on Zoom or on Teams. I think it requires a complete design change in the ways of working. And so, we've built capability in-house, but we've also made acquisitions that we've recently announced to bolster our offerings in the area. From a softer standpoint, the feedback that I get from teams is that while we may have been distant over the last 2 years, but we've been far more connected than we've ever been, because the concern for each other's well-being has actually overpowered and encouraged everybody to be in touch with our employees much more than we previously did, which is really heartening.
Yeah, Definitely one of the positives, if you're going to look on the bright side of the pandemic, it's brought a bit more humanity into the workplace, and that's definitely a positive thing. Agree with you there. Um, what about around sort of the skills required and the training? We've been talking about this kind of digital fluency, as employees now have a lot more information at their fingertips. You're making investments in AI and analytics, which are giving them more information to use potentially, to make better decisions. How do you approach training and skilling a workforce, perhaps that wasn't used to using so many of these tools, perhaps is more used to reading scripts traditionally in this type of role? How are you approaching that and making sure that people are equipped with the data, the information, and the skills that they have to do their jobs?
Yeah, that's a great question, Melissa. I think the way we are addressing it is three ways. One is to create what I call a hybrid workforce, right? I mentioned earlier that we've got just under 60,000 employees in TechM's BPS business just now. And that continues to grow, right? But to supplement that, we have over 20,000 bots in action. And the bots are at work 24/7. So, you multiply that by 3, I can safely say that half of our workload is currently being done by bots. So I think that's one thrust area that we as a leadership team are continuing to push on, which is virtualization of the workforce. I think the second area is creating a workforce with next generation skills. And these skills are in the areas of design thinking, data sciences, hyper automation. We've currently got 1,500 of those talented young individuals on our teams. And we are continuing to grow that. That workforce is growing faster than the overall base. The way we feed that skill pool is both internal training and career progression, as well as hiring from outside. And the third one, which I think the industry should do more of, is with this increased automation. What is happening is that the residual work is quite complex, and the complexity there is increasing. And that means to deal with these complex queries, our frontline staff across all channels actually need more complex skills and higher proficiency in those skills to deal with complex queries. And we've got a program going where we've mandated 2 weeks of training for every employee. Plus, we've got a digital university which has access to thousands of courses for self-learning for all our employees.
Super. Okay. So you've done a great deal of investment in this skills piece. The design thinking, I couldn't agree more. That's going to become so important, especially as you look through this human-centric lens of, holistic experience. Couldn't be more important to have that. What about this issue, which I think is probably the biggest of 2022 that everyone's talking about, of this great resignation or reshuffle, or however you want to put it? You've got these fantastic, talented people. How do you be sure to retain them and cultivate that culture? Has the Great Resignation affected you and your clients, and how are you dealing with it?
Yeah, again, a great question, right? So I personally feel a lot has been made of the Great Resignation. I think before and after, nothing much has changed. Those organizations who were really strong in listening to employees and working with them on designing career paths and helping employees achieve those career objectives, they are sitting pretty, and they're able to attract more talent. And luckily, we find ourselves in that position. Before and after, we haven't seen a large change in either our ability to attract talent or to retain them, right? Specifically for our customers, I think we've seen a huge demand for, again, those specialist skills, whether it is analytics, data sciences, consulting, program management, because these are quite fungible skills, and with the boon in startups and product companies, the career prospects are quite bright for this kind of a skill set. We have again got a pretty robust way of addressing this talent pool both internally and externally, and we have helped customers when the need arises. We're also seeing another impact of this great resignation, particularly in these skill sets that I mentioned, where customers are actually looking at global delivery centers rather than the traditional sources of talent, and also open to discussions about price increases and making sure that the working conditions and the working hours, etc., for the staff are quite attractive.
Right. That sounds like all positive news, and it's really heartening to hear that it hasn't affected you guys because you had that foundation. So really great to hear, because I think it's something your clients are probably going to be struggling with this year and moving forward. So Biren, in last month's roundtable, which was supported by Tech Mahindra, and we participated together, was a great discussion. We had about 20 plus actually enterprise delegates in various roles across automation and experience design, and each had a different perspective and hand in the CX design at their firms. What we found from those delegates were that their top challenge was around data. So around data quality and also around data being siloed across the customer lifecycle and stuck in various parts of the enterprise's systems. So would like to get from your perspective, how are you tackling this data challenge with your customers, or how are you helping them with it, if you will? And then what do you see as a successful strategy to tackle this data challenge?
Thanks, Melissa. Actually, the HFS roundtable was a fantastic session to hear from 20 leaders across the globe and across industries. Was very enriching for me personally. I think the data question is probably the most relevant one when we talk about CX, and we're looking at it in 4 stages, right? The first one is collection of data and storage of data, which I think is an important question, because if we don't get this right, the rest of the strategy falls apart. And the questions to really ask are we capturing the right data and rich data that matters to the context of when and where we are measuring that data. Storage I won't touch upon, because I think cloud is revolutionizing the way data is getting stored and is available for any usage. I think the second area that is really important is, are we converting the right data into the insights that help us and our customers run our businesses better and take more informed decisions? Everybody talks about the power of AI and ML, but really converting raw data and allowing context along with algorithms to actually predict and prescribe what can happen in the future. I think those kind of insights, are we doing enough to solve real business problems? So that's the second thrust area. I think the third area that I'm particularly passionate about is data democracy. I think long has data been held and controlled by the CIO function or by people who are data scientists, etc. Why can't business people actually work with data as and when they want to, and run the same algorithms without understanding the science behind it? And I call it democratization of data. It's a big thrust for us, and ensuring data and insights are available to decision makers on their fingertips. And they don't need to be data scientists to make sense of it, I think is the third area. And finally, what do we do with all this? We are calling it data monetization, which is using these insights and driving superior outcomes, whether it is improved CX, attracting and retaining more customers, generating more lifetime value per customer, or improving operating costs by running processes more efficiently. Those are monetizing use cases of different types of data that we collect, right? And what we're doing is making a end-to-end platform available to our customers. It's called SEER. I think you know about it, which captures this entire life cycle and has multiple use cases already built on it, and customers are liking it. So I'm quite confident that if any organization actually focuses on these 4 things, we'll solve this data problem, but it's not easy.
Absolutely. I think all 4 resonate with our audience for sure. And it's easier said than done, but it's so important to have this philosophy and this strategy behind it in order to execute. So thanks for that. One last question for you, Biren. I'm going to put you on the spot. If you could make one prediction this year about customer experience, what would it be? 2022 customer experience will be?
That's a great question, Melissa. So I don't think we've seen disruption yet in CX. I think there's more to come, and at a larger speed, driven by tech and driven by amazing people. That's what I'd say. I think one, CX will become increasingly more important even than what it is today. And second, the way CX is delivered, experiences created, is going to further accelerate in terms of transformation we've seen.
Super. I couldn't agree more. I love that prediction. I think there's still so much, we've been talking for years and years about automation and analytics and intelligent automation and how that's going to impact CX. And it feels as though we've just scratched the surface for some of that stuff. And absolutely, there's a lot from taking the capability to connect CX with EX and align those outcomes. So I'm excited to see what's in store for that. And it's always really great to hear from leaders like yourself on what your vision is for that. So looking forward to seeing that disruption and seeing it evolve this year. Thank you so much, Birendra, for joining us. It was a pleasure chatting with you as always, and look forward to our next one. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you, Melissa. It's been a pleasure, and you asked some really great questions, made me think as well. I look forward to remaining in touch and also engaging with HFS to continuously drive what we believe could be the right model for succeeding in creating amazing experiences for customers.
Super. Thanks, Birendra.
Thank you. Bye-bye.